Yes, the Dallas Cowboys absolutely can beat the Baltimore Ravens, but what is up, everyone, and welcome into A to Z Sports Dallas Primetime. I am your host, Mauricio Rodriguez, streaming with you live every Sunday and Thursday night, 8 p.m. Central, catching up with you Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but I don't want to keep you waiting anymore. The Dallas Cowboys can beat the Ravens, but they got to force Lamar Jackson to throw the football. I know that's odd to say about a two-time MVP quarterback and someone who is widely considered to be one of the best in the game, but that is the truth against this team. And that's not a knock on Lamar Jackson at all, but it's an observation of two things. Number one, your defense is pretty damn good at rushing the passer. That's what we saw in week one. The problem is we didn't in week two. Not because they were not rushing the passer efficiently, because they didn't have a shot at rushing Derek Carr and company, because the Saints were just running the football around. They had 18 total dropbacks in the game, 12 of which were play action, another 4 of which were screen passes. So they were not even true dropbacks. So if you're, by the way, complaining about Micah Parsons not getting any numbers in the stat sheet, I do suggest watching the game again and zeroing in on number 11, because I'm going to tell you right now, you don't even have to watch the film. If you trust me, I'll tell you right now, Micah didn't get a shot at rushing Derek Carr. And when he did, usually there was a pressure in there. He actually finished with 3 of them in the game, despite the limited dropbacks and everything else I just mentioned. But additionally, regarding the Ravens, it's an observation on the fact that you have a mismatch there that you could exploit. Micah going up against whoever the right tackle is, by the way, for the Ravens, because they've got Patrick McCarry as their starter, number 65. You could see Baltimore Ravens fans on Twitter still arguing. Days removed from game day, they lost to the LV Raiders, so obviously they're still upset. But Ravens fans and media, they're even discussing if they should bench their starting right tackle and give someone else a shot, right? Because he exited the game briefly. The guy that came in, basically, I don't recall if it's Ezra Cleveland, but I'll give you that answer just in here in a minute. But when the backup came in, like he played a little bit better, and yeah, you could see that on tape. But also the game script, I guess, was a little bit different by then. No, it was Roger Rosengarten, actually. You guys remember him? So because we talked a lot about him during the draft process back when he was a prospect. But anyways, Roger Rosengarten is said to be, the best right tackle on that team. There's that debate at least going on. But when Patrick McCarry was out there, he was exposed a little bit, right? He allowed 2 pressures, don't sound like much, but again, he didn't play the full game. They also have a big question mark at right guard with Daniel Falele. So you're talking about unleashing Micah Parsons as a pass rusher and Marcus Lawrence in that side of the offensive line. You could generate some trouble for the Baltimore Ravens offense. There are a lot of reasons to believe that. Number one is you look at the passing game for the Ravens, they're not getting rid of that football quickly. That is not the Ravens' passing game at all. Unlike, say, the New Orleans Saints that came with that game plan into the game, right? Derek Carr is one of the fastest to throw in the NFL right now. Lamar Jackson is 27th. So these are long dropbacks where Lamar Jackson is looking downfield. A lot of those plays that you see are something like this, and I'll show you right now. I'll share my screen, where he's just, and obviously Lamar is so good at evading pressure, right? You see a lot of these plays where Lamar Jackson is just going to be pressured and then escape it, which is obviously a problem. But then you'll see a lot of these, like the big chunks on the Ravens offense is like Save Flowers looking for that soft spot on the defense after Lamar is already scrambling or something like that. There's so much of this, and that's not bad necessarily, but against the Micah Parsons-led pass rush, it would be pretty bad. Over on the left side of things, Ronnie Stanley, by the way, he played a pretty good game, but I'll tell you this, he's on the injury report, did not practice for the Ravens on Wednesday. So, yeah, he had a good day against the Raiders, especially when not facing Max Crosby, who was mostly exploiting that mismatch that I'm talking about. But Ronnie Stanley being hurt against Micah is a different story too. So I think the Cowboys could get some pressure against Lamar Jackson, honestly, in this game. And yeah, as I said, like when you have a weak link next to another weak link, which is what the Ravens have right now at right guard and right tackle, that will open up some opportunities for you. And again, the Cowboys were great at rushing the passer in week 1. Here's where we get to this, right? Like, how do you get there? And against the Saints, you couldn't rush the passer because they were killing you in early downs. And the fear is naturally that this will happen again. Because if you are an NFL team and you're about to face the Cowboys, then you better watch that Saints tape closely and conclude that you're going to attack them on early downs and you're going to attack the perimeter. Whether that's white zone, whether you're tossing the football, whether you're pitching it, whatever you're doing, you better aim for the sidelines when you're going up against these Cowboys defense. Unfortunately for Dallas, this is a Ravens offense that will also force them to be on base, to get heavy and try to outplay them in the trenches. So I'm going to give you some numbers right here. The Ravens are the number 2 team in the NFL, according to Sports Info Solutions, in using 12 personnel. And by the way, they're the most successful one at it in terms of success rate. They can go with 21 personnel if they want to get heavy with a fullback in there. And they're the 6th team that does it the most. They are top 5 in success rate in that area as well. Or maybe they want to go extremely heavy. They could get with 2 running backs in there, 2 tight ends, play 22 personnel on you. They do that at the 4th highest rate in the NFL, and they're the 8th most successful when they do. This team runs 11 personnel, meaning 3 wide receivers, at the 31st rate in the NFL. It's about 30%, something like that. The Ravens do not go on 11 personnel, is what I'm trying to say. And after seeing what the Saints did, last week, why would they change anything? The Ravens are about to challenge you in the trenches. Now, there are some questions that I have about this, and obviously number one is, can the Cowboys magically get better in the trenches and make this work? The answer to that is I don't know. The Cowboys, by the way, they placed Jordan Phillips on injured reserve. He immediately claimed that he isn't injured, so that should tell you how things are going over in Dallas. They signed Carlos Watkins off of the Commanders practice squad. They might move some pieces around at defensive tackle. The point is, I don't see this changing at all because the Cowboys really don't have that personnel. I don't think that Carlos Watkins really moves the needle for you at defensive tackle. He might be better than Jordan Phillips. I don't know, though, that he changes anything in a big way at all for Dallas. But your defensive tackles were beaten to the point of attack again and again and again in week 2. And we're just crossing our fingers and hoping Mike Zimmer comes up with a solution, because personnel-wise, the Cowboys don't have one. I mentioned this because it's really going to be hard for the Cowboys to get Lamar Jackson and the Ravens in those drop-back situations that I just talked about, right? So that's why I say, hey, they could beat them. They absolutely could beat them. But you got to find a way to make this work. And the good news here for Dallas, and I think this is one of the big question marks that I have about this game, is, so let's talk about the Saints really quickly. Don't worry, we won't dive too deep into it. But sure, the Saints attack the perimeter of the defense. But that's what they do. That's what they are preaching with Clint Kubiak as offensive coordinator. That is their bread and butter. So not only were they playing to the Cowboys' weakness, they were playing to their own strength. And that's where I do wonder, do the Ravens, do they count as an outside zone kind of team? The answer to that is not. Actually, they are 30th in zone runs in the NFL. They're more of a gap scheme, and they have been for a few years now, right? They will run power on you. They will run counter. They will do this. They will do that. But ultimately, hell, they can run the football to the perimeter if they want to. And I'll show you a perfect example of that. This is the Ravens basically running a white zone to the left. And excuse me if it's not exactly a white zone, but you'll see what I mean here, right? They're running wide to the left. It's Derrick Henry. They're doing it with a tight end, and they're doing it with a fullback and Safe Flowers. Man, we're going to look at the play, and that is Derrick Henry just hitting the hole, and then staying with balance, using his power, using that famous stiff arm of his. But I want you to watch. What I want you to watch here is we're going to watch the defensive tackles for the Raiders, who, by the way, I think they're better than the Cowboys at defensive tackle. But you're also going to watch number 88. You're going to watch number 42, so the tight ends slash fullback, H-back, whatever you want to call them here. And we're going to watch Zay Flowers as well. Man, first defensive tackles, right? They get reached. This is more of what we saw in week 2 for the Cowboys. So you're facing a team that can't do this. They can't make this happen. But look at 4, look at 88, look at 42, right? Those are your tight ends. Those are your wide receivers, your H-backs. And look at that attitude, just run blocking. This is what you're facing on Sunday, man. So the reason why I wanted to show this play is like, we talk about the Cowboys being soft sometimes, and we talk about how some teams are just wired differently, and they're physical, and they're hard-nosed, and it's a cliche that the AFC North is a bloodbath of a division. This is a play that shows that attitude, and I don't think that the Cowboys show these every time they step on the field, so the Cowboys better be ready for this, especially on defense. But sure, the Ravens, they like to run it up the gut. They like to run it inside. They like to do that. But if they see the tape and they say, we're going to use a lot of this on Sunday, I think they can pull it off. So the Cowboys better be ready for it. And you might say, duh, Mo. Obviously, they got to be ready for it. You've got a defensive coordinator claiming that they didn't expect to be in a lot of base down packages last week, even though the Saints played 11 personnel at the 30th rate, I think, in the NFL. It was something like that. It was bottom 3 for sure. So they got to show up with a different mindset, and it pains me to say that the analysis is as simple as that, man, but the Cowboys just got to be different when they step on that field in week 3 against the run, because you're going to be on base. So they're going to force you to play those linebackers. You're going to see a lot of Kendricks. We might see a lot of Clark. I hope we see a whole more of Overshown, right? Because the logic was that they didn't want to play him in base last week. We'll see if that changes, though. And obviously, you're going to have to do some adjustments. You're going to have a spy on Lamar. Cowboys used Overshown as the spy on Deshaun Watson. So we'll see if they use more of this on Lamar. But the point here is they got to figure out a way to get in those third down situations because, man, they can be beat on third and long, on third and medium. As long as Micah has the choice to go after the QB, you have a shot at this game because there's a mismatch in the trenches. The receivers, they've got some dudes. They've got Zay Flowers. They've got Rashad Bateman. And let me tell you something, man, about that 12 personnel. And Mike McCarthy even talked about this. They use a lot of 12 personnel, but they use it in so many different ways. They can be condensed, as we just showed just now, which was maybe 12, maybe 21, depending on how you count 42. But you also are going to see some of these spread formations where they've got 2 tight ends, but Isaiah Likely is basically lined up as a slot wide receiver. Or maybe the 2 can be split out wide, and they can do a lot of crazy stuff. So McCarthy even talked about how for them, 12 personnel and 11 personnel for the Ravens, it was somewhat interchangeable, and that makes it maybe even more dangerous. I would expect them to be more heavy, though, when they take on the Cowboys this Sunday. But what I was going to say is you're going to have answers for that. I don't feel like their wide receivers are really dangerous, so it should be a challenge that your backfield is really in it. I don't see them getting beat that much in there. Obviously, they could because they got Lamar Jackson in there. He's a pretty good quarterback. But I do wonder about the body types that you're going to see on the tight ends as well. Because, again, the Cowboys, for some reason, they left Overshown off of the base package. But it would make a lot of sense for me to have the Marvin Overshown on that field to try to counter those dump-offs to Isaiah Likely that he's able to take for 10 yards downfield after the catch. And the same for Mark Andrews. Overshown, there's no excuse, man. He's got to be on that field against this Ravens team for all of the reasons that we just went over. And, of course, for the fact that he's just simply a better linebacker than Maris Leofau and arguably Clark as well. He's got to be on that field. One of the big takeaways, I think, for today's show is going to be that. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for tuning into the show. We'll talk more about this matchup tomorrow on the live show. We'll talk about the offense side of things as well, because there are some good takeaways there too. But for now, Cowboys can beat the Ravens, man. Just gotta get to those passing downs. Let's see if they make it happen. Hit the like button for me if you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.